เฮ้ยไกด์ฉันได้ส่วนลดอะไรก็ไม่รู้แกทั้ง2,000 บาทนี่ดิดูดิในเมลเนี่ย
โอ้ยดีอ่ะกดเลยเนี่ยรีบกดเลยรีบรับเลยส่งให้ด้วยนะส่งให้ด้วย
โอเคส่งไปละได้ปะ
โอ้โหเดี๋ยวก่อนเฮ้ยอยู่ดีมีเมลจากทีม Security อ่ะแกเขาให้ฉันรีบไปรายงานตัวเนี่ยภายใน30 นาทีด้วยเนี่ยเดี๋ยวนะลองกดดูก่อนนะเฮ้ยเขาให้ฉันกรอก username password ด้วยอ่ะเบอร์โทรศัพท์ด้วย
กรอกไปเถอะแกเดี๋ยวเจ้านายว่า
โอเคกรอก
ไกด์อย่าพึ่งภัยไซเบอร์เป็นสิ่งรอบตัวที่อาจจะเกิดขึ้นกับพวกเราได้ตลอดเวลายกตัวอย่างเช่นเมลหลอกลวงที่จะกระตุ้นให้พวกเราใส่ข้อมูลส่วนตัวกระตุ้นให้เราอยากได้หรือกระตุ้นให้เราอยากจะกดส่งเดี๋ยวนั้นเดี๋ยวเรามาเรียนรู้กันนะคะว่าเราจะสามารถมีวิธีการสังเกตเมลหลอกลวงเหล่านั้นได้อย่างไรค่ะ
phishing อีเมลนะคะหรืออีเมลหลอกลวงที่ทุกคนอาจจะเคยเจอกันมาก่อนหน้านี้นะคะก็เป็นอีเมลหลอกลวงนี่แหละที่ทางแฮกเกอร์เขาทำขึ้นมาแล้วก็ข้อมูลข้างในทำให้ดูน่าเชื่อถือมากเลยนะคะส่วนมากอีเมลก็จะส่งมาจากอีเมล address ที่เราคุ้นเคยกันดีนะคะไม่ว่าจะเป็นพวกองค์กรดังๆต่างๆนะคะหน่วยงานราชการหรือบริษัทที่เรารู้จักกันนะคะโดยที่ข้อมูลส่วนบุคคลที่เขาต้องการนำไปก็จะเป็นพวกอย่างเช่น username password ของเรานะคะที่เวลาเราใช้ล็อกอินหรือแม้กระทั่งข้อมูลบัตรเครดิตอย่างเงี้ยค่ะที่เขาอยากจะเอาเข้าไปเพื่อไปทำการหลอกลวงต่อไปนะครับ
เดี๋ยวทีนี้ผมจะมาเล่าให้ฟังว่าจุดสังเกตในการสังเกตว่า phishing อีเมลต่างจากอีเมลที่เป็นจริงนะครับแตกต่างกันยังไงบ้างจริงๆมันจะมีจุดสังเกตประมาณ3จุดละกันนะครับที่วันนี้อยากจะมาแชร์ให้ทุกท่านได้ฟัง1คือเรื่องของตัวอีเมลนะครับโดยเฉพาะเวลาเราเช็คตัวผ่านโมบายแอปพลิเคชันนะครับบางทีเราจะไม่ได้สังเกตถ้าเราไม่ได้กดเข้าไปดูจากชื่อนามสกุลนะครับถ้าเราดูเร็วๆจะเห็นว่าชื่อนามสกุลมันมีชื่อที่ตรงกับคนที่เราต้องการติดต่อด้วยแต่บางทีเราไม่ได้สังเกตว่าไออีเมล address ที่ส่งมาบางทีมันมีอะไรที่แปลกเปลี่ยนไปนะครับยกตัวอย่างเช่นปกติอาจจะเป็น user1@hotmail.com นะครับแต่คำว่า hotmail มันอาจจะเปลี่ยน m เป็น n กลายเป็น hotmail นะครับถ้าเราปัดไปเร็วๆเราจะไม่สังเกตซึ่งเราก็อาจจะเชื่อว่าเป็นอีเมลจากบุคคลที่เราได้รับอีเมลจากคนที่เรารู้จักนะครับนี่คือจุดแรกเลยส่วนในจุดที่2เองคือเรื่องของตัว layout นะครับตัวอีเมลโดยเฉพาะที่เป็น phishing อีเมลถ้าเราสังเกตดีๆจะเห็นว่าอีเมลอาจจะมีการจัดรูปแบบที่มันเบี้ยวไปเบี้ยวมานะครับมีการสะกดผิดบ้างมีการใช้ grammar ที่มันผิดบ้างนะครับเป็นอะไรที่ปกติมากๆนะครับอันนี้เป็นตัวอย่างที่ผมว่าทุกท่านน่าจะเคยเจอมาในอดีตนะครับและในแง่มุมที่3คือเรื่องของตัวอีเมลที่มันดูดีเกินไปนะครับดูดีเกินที่เป็นจริงเช่นมีการส่งอีเมลว่าถ้าคุณอยากชิงโชคลุ้นรับทองนะครับลุ้นรับรถยนต์นะครับให้กรอกชื่อนามสกุลเบอร์ติดต่ออาจจะเป็นบัตรเครดิตนะครับเพื่อยืนยันสิทธิ์สิ่งพวกนี้มันเป็นอะไรที่น่าจะเป็นไปไม่ได้ว่าใครจะมาแจกเราง่ายๆนะครับถ้าเราไม่สังเกตดีๆแล้วอาจจะมีโอกาสที่เราจะถูกขโมยข้อมูลส่วนบุคคลนะครับซึ่งนี่เป็นความเสี่ยงแน่นอนจากกลุ่มเราแฮกเกอร์ก็ตามนะครับจะเห็นว่าปัจจุบันphishing email เป็นอะไรที่ค่อนข้างใกล้ตัวเรานะครับถ้าเราหมั่นสังเกตสัก3ข้อเมื่อกี้ที่ผมแชร์มานะครับผมเชื่อว่าจะทำให้การทำงานของเรานะครับจะไม่ถูกโดยหลอกลวงโดยกลุ่มแฮกเกอร์เหล่านี้ครับ
เรียนท่านผู้บริหารสำนักงานคอพมิสเตอร์เดนิสวานเดลิฟคุณภักดีอัญญโกมลคณะผู้บริหารบริษัท Microsoft ประเทศไทยจำกัดและพนักงานสำนักงานคอพทุกท่านผมมีความยินดีและเป็นเกียรติอย่างยิ่งที่ได้รับเชิญมาเป็นประธานเปิดการสัมมนาออนไลน์ในหัวข้อ Intelligence Insurance Forum ท่ามกลางความก้าวหน้าของการเปลี่ยนแปลงเทคโนโลยีอย่างก้าวกระโดดเทคโนโลยีดิจิทัลได้เข้ามีบทบาทสำคัญในชีวิตประจำวันของเราเป็นอย่างมากและแทรกซึมเข้าไปในทุกกิจกรรมทุกธุรกรรมส่งผลต่อพฤติการการดำรงชีวิตของประชาชนนอกจากนี้ทุกท่านคงทราบเป็นอย่างดีว่าสถานการณ์แพร่ระบาดของโรคโควิด -19 ยิ่งเร่งให้เกิดการเปลี่ยนแปลงรูปแบบการทำธุรกิจเนื่องจากผู้บริโภคถูกกระตุ้นให้หันมาใช้บริการต่างๆบนสมาร์ทโฟนมากยิ่งขึ้นการทำธุรการออนไลน์จึงถูกพัฒนาให้รวดเร็วยิ่งขึ้นราคาถูกลงคุณภาพดีขึ้นธุรกิจดั้งเดิมหลายประเภทจึงต้องปรับตัวจากการมีหน้าร้านไปสู่แพลตฟอร์มออนไลน์ดังนั้นหากธุรกิจประกันภัยรวมถึงสำนักงานคอพไม่สามารถปรับตัวให้สามารถดำเนินการทันต่อการเปลี่ยนแปลงครั้งนี้อาจจะก่อให้เกิดความเสียหายในระยะยาวได้ในช่วง 30 ปีที่ผ่านมามีการพูดถึงกระแสความเปลี่ยนแปลงที่เกิดจากเทคโนโลยีหรือที่เราเรียกว่า Digital Disruption บ ริษัทประกันภัยหลายแห่งเริ่มต้นพิจารณาการเปลี่ยนแปลงการดำเนินธุรกิจให้สอดรับกับภูมิทัศน์ที่เปลี่ยนแปลงไปอย่างรวดเร็วที่ผ่านมาสำนักงานคพ.ได้ดำเนินการผลักดันให้เกิดนวัตกรรมทางการประกันภัยพร้อมทั้งระบบนิเวศที่สมบูรณ์ในหลายด้านอาทิเช่นการสนับสนุนการสร้างนวัตกรรมทางการประกันภัยผ่านกลไกการทดสอบและพัฒนาวัฒนธรรมและพัฒนานวัตกรรมที่นำเทคโนโลยีใหม่มาสมให้เกิดการบริการทางด้านการประกันภัยที่เอื้อให้บริษัทประกันภัยและผู้บริการด้านการประกันภัยสามารถพัฒนาผลิตภัณฑ์และการบริการด้วยเทคโนโลยีสมัยใหม่และทดลองให้บริการได้โดยเริ่มจากการทดสอบในขอบเขตจำกัดก่อนจะให้บริการในวงกว้างนอกจากนี้สำนักงานคพ.ยังมีนโยบายสนับสนุนให้บริษัทประกันภัยมีการปรับตัวทางด้านดิจิทัลมากยิ่งขึ้นโดยได้ออกมาตรการต่างๆที่ช่วยสนับสนุนการดำเนินงานของภาคธุรกิจประกันภัยอาทิเช่นการออกประกาศเป็นการเฉพาะกิจสำหรับการเสนอขายดิจิทัล Face to Face ที่อนุญาตให้ผู้ขายสามารถเสนอขายโดยใช้เสียงหรือเสียงและภาพให้เสมือนหนึ่งไปถึงการพบลูกค้าเพื่อเกิดความคล่องตัวในการดำเนินทางธุรกิจมากยิ่งขึ้นสำนักงานคพ.มุ่งหวังที่จะให้สนับสนุนและขับเคลื่อนให้บริษัทประกันภัยสามารถเจริญเติบโตด้วยการพัฒนานวัตกรรมด้านการประกันภัยอย่างมีประสิทธิภาพรวมถึงมีการเปลี่ยนแปลงรูปแบบในการดำเนินทางธุรกิจที่มีการปรับปรุงกระบวนการในการดำเนินการทางธุรกิจให้มีความยั่งยืนในอนาคตทุกท่านครับการจัดสัมมนาในวันนี้สำนักงานคพ.ได้รับเกียรติเป็นอย่างยิ่งจากมิสเตอร์เดนิส วันเดลิฟคุณภักดีอัญญโกมลและพรีลิสต์3ท่านจากบริษัท Microsoft อันประกอบไปด้วยมิสเตอร์ริชาร์ดคิวมิสเตอร์จอห์นชานมิสเตอร์สลิมนาอิมที่จะมาร่วมบรรยายทุกท่านได้รับทราบถึงการนำเทคโนโลยีนวัตกรรมมาใช้ในการพัฒนาการธุรกิจประกันภัยผมหวังเป็นอย่างยิ่งว่าทุกท่านจะมีความเข้าใจถึงแนวทางในการปรับตัวของภาคธุรกิจประกันภัยในรูปแบบการดำเนินธุรกิจของประกันภัยมากยิ่งขึ้นและสามารถนำความรู้ที่ได้ไปปรับใช้ในการปฏิบัติงานเพื่อเกิดผลสำเร็จต่อภาคธุรกิจประกันภัยโดยรวมต่อไปก่อนจะเปิดการสัมมนาผมต้องขอบคุณคุณโอมศรีวดิษฐ์ผู้แทนจากบริษัท Microsoft ประเทศไทยจำกัดคุณวรวุฒิปิยะอารยนันท์และคุณนิติภาช้างหลำผู้แทนจากสำนักงานคพ.ที่ร่วมกันจัดให้เกิดการสัมมนาออนไลน์ในครั้งนี้ได้บัดนี้ได้เวลาอันสมควรแล้วผมขอเปิดการสัมมนาออนไลน์ในหัวข้อ Intelligence Insurance Forum ณ บัดนี้เป็นต้นไปขอบคุณมากครับสวัสดีครับ
สวัสดีครับผมภักดีนะครับผมเป็น Director Sales จากทาง Microsoft ประเทศไทยนะครับวันนี้ต้องขอบคุณคุณชูชัดประมูลผลนะครับท่านรองเลขาธิการนะครับทางคปภ.ที่ให้โอกาสทาง Microsoft ประเทศไทยนะครับได้เข้ามาแชร์นะครับในเรื่องของ Digital Transformation นะครับใน Insurance Industry วันนี้เองนะครับผมมีสปีกเกอร์มาจากทั่วทุกมุมโลกเลยนะครับท่านแรกเนี่ยท่านคือ Director นะครับในส่วนของInsurance ที่เป็น Worldwide Solution นะครับคุณเดนิส เวนเดลิฟนะครับท่านจะอยู่ที่ Seattle นะครับและจะเข้ามาแชร์ในส่วนของ Keynote ในเรื่องของ Intelligent Insurance นะครับต่อด้วยในเรื่องของ Panel Discussion หลังจากที่คุณเดนิสจะพูดถึงในส่วนของที่เป็น Thought Leadership แล้วเนี่ยนะครับเราจะมาเจาะลึกนะครับกับ3 Expert นะครับที่ Expert ในทางด้านเรื่องของการทำ Collaboration ในเรื่องของ Process และในเรื่องของ Data นะครับเขาจะเข้ามาเล่าในแง่ของการที่เข้าไป engagement ลูกค้าจริงๆนะครับเล่าถึง use case เล่าถึงlesson learn นะครับรวมถึง key success factor นะครับในการทำงานเพื่อจะทำให้ transformation เนี่ยประสบความสำเร็จนะครับและในเซสชันสุดท้ายนะครับผมจะมีคุณวสุพลนะครับคุณวสุพลเนี่ยจะเป็น Head of Azure นะครับของประเทศไทยนะครับซึ่งคุณวสุพลเองเนี่ยจะเข้ามาแชร์ในโซลูชันของ Partner Microsoft นะครับที่ทำเกี่ยวกับเรื่องของ EKYC ครับผมนะครับก็เดี๋ยวผมขออนุญาตส่งต่อนะครับให้กับคุณเดนิส เวนเดลิฟนะครับเชิญครับ
Sawadee krab, and hello and welcome to this session on digital transformation in insurance. My name is Dennis Vanderlip. I'm the Director of Insurance Industry Solutions at Microsoft. And before we get started, I wanted to take the opportunity to thank the Office of the Insurance Commission of Thailand for the opportunity for you to speak with you today. I'm going to cover off in this presentation in 3 separate parts. The first, I want to share with you what we see as the challenges for digital transformation in insurance. Second, I want to talk a little bit about the forces that we see driving change in the insurance industry. I have the opportunity to work with insurance carriers all over the world, and I think it's interesting to take some of the learnings that we have in working with those customers to share them with you. And I know that the market situation is different in Thailand, but it's interesting to get ideas from other places. Finally, in the final part of my presentation, I want to talk about the areas that Microsoft focuses on with our customers to be able to help them digitally transform their business. And I am going to take the time to share with you quite a few concrete examples that some of those examples you might find interesting to implement yourselves. So if it's all right, let's get started. So before I jump in too far, one of the big challenges that we have when we talk to customers about digital transformation in insurance is that people immediately think it's just about technology. And what we found, our experience with customers, is the technology is only really a small part of digital transformation. 4 or 5 or maybe 10 years ago, we would sit around with our insurance carriers and we would ask the question, can the technology do what we want? The answer to that question today is the technology can do what you want. The bigger challenges are beyond the technology. So let's start with vision and strategy. If you're a leader in your insurance carrier, you together with your CEO, and other people on the leadership team need to set a vision and a strategy for digital transformation. Without everyone in your organization understanding that digitally transforming the insurance business is essential to your success, you won't be able to make it happen no matter how good the technology is. The second area I want to focus on is culture. Just because you, as a senior leader at your insurance carrier, has a vision and a strategy doesn't mean digital transformation will work unless you foster, as a leader, a culture that can accept and drive digital transformation across the business. The third area I want to focus on is this: unique strengths. Sometimes we find our insurance carrier customers focusing on technology and digital transformation just for the technology itself and not thinking long and hard about the business outcomes. What are the strengths of your particular insurance carrier that you want to rely upon to win in the market, and how can technology focus on those areas? And fourth, a challenge, at least for many of the customers that I work with, is do you have within your company, within your carrier, the capabilities you need, especially the human resource, the people capital, with the right skills to digitally transform your business? And the answer is many carriers don't. And that's why carriers work with technology vendor partners, with insurance industry solution vendor partners to be able to augment the capabilities that you have to be able to digitally transform your business. So let's change gears a little bit and talk about the forces that are driving change in insurance. And as I mentioned before, I get the chance to work with a lot of different executives, from small and medium-sized insurance carriers to large insurance carriers across the world. And this is what they tell us are those key driving changes, those key forces in the insurance industry that are driving change and forcing them to digitally transform their business. The first is remote sales and service. And obviously, this was driven primarily by COVID over the last year and a half. I'll break it up into two sides. Remote service was really driven across the globe by COVID, where there was a need to break up the call centers. You couldn't have people working in a call center or a contact center, so you needed the ability to service your customers remotely. You needed to be able to send home all of your call center agents and have them enabled to be able to still use their computer, answer the phone, service their customers. The one thing we found was that the carriers who had prepared in advance to be able to service their customers remotely did very well during COVID. Those customers who were still, on-prem, very much focused on centralized service of customers, they didn't fare very well. And I'll share an example of that later. On remote sales, I would say most of our carriers haven't come very far. The difference between servicing is pretty easy. Selling a complex insurance product remotely, especially, and it may be the case in Thailand, where there's a very strong face-to-face culture, and many people buy insurance from their friends or from an acquaintance of a friend. Remote sales is tricky because it's more complex, but we see increased focus on being able to remotely sell and service insurance products. The second one is changing customer expectations. And this is obvious. All of you in the room know this, or on the phone, I'm sorry, not in the room, on the phone, understand this. Our customers, as insurance carriers, are having great experiences in other aspects of their lives when they shop for things. So the experiences people have on Amazon, being able to buy something at 10 o'clock in the morning from bed and have it delivered to them by 4 o'clock in the afternoon. All these kinds of experiences, customers are expecting it from their insurance carrier. And so digital transformation has to support those changing customer expectations. It's also changing over generations. I have two sons who are from the new generation. They haven't even looked at email in the last 3 years. It's got to be about, TikTok or Instagram or something like that. That's how they expect to interact with the people that they buy things from. Now, I'm sure you're asking yourself, or you're telling me, it's different selling a basketball on Amazon than it is selling a life insurance policy. The complexity is different, the regulatory requirements are completely different, but that doesn't mean that digital transformation must focus on how to change that customer experience, even in a highly regulated industry. Number 3 is cost savings. Cost savings comes up probably in the top 3 to 5 priorities for nearly every company every carrier that I work with. But I do need to say it rarely comes first. First is always, how do we transform the way we work with customers? And in many cases, you'll also be able to reduce costs, but any company who is focused solely on digital transformation to reduce cost is going to miss the opportunity to improve that customer experience. The fourth area is this threat of disruption and disintermediation. So 4 or 5 years ago, when I used to sit around the table here in Seattle, Washington, with folks from our insurance carrier customers, what was on everybody's mind was, what's the big disruption that's going to happen in insurance? How is fintech going to take over insurance? We saw them do it with Uber and taxis. We saw them do it with Airbnb, with hotels, and there are a million other examples. There was a big crisis about what was going to happen. How was fintech or insurtech going to crush insurance? If you fast forward 5 years, that didn't happen, right? We still have, for the most part, the established carriers. And the reason that happened is that these fintechs and insurtechs, these upcoming companies, they were great at user experience. They were great at that changing customer expectations. But once they built a book of business, they realized that insurance is hard. You have to meet regulatory requirements. You have to meet capital requirements. You have to meet selling legal requirements. And so what we've seen, rather than fintech taking over the world in insurance, and I don't think it will, we've seen that the established carriers are either buying fintech companies, they're investing in fintech companies, or they are partnering with fintech companies. So what we see moving forward is a marriage of fintech and insurtech together with established insurance companies. Insurance companies will not lose a big portion of the market share, and insurance companies will simply be looking across their value chain, seeing where they're weak, and partnering with fintechs and insurtech companies. The other side of that I call big tech. And big tech are the large social media platforms, the large market platforms in the world. That's where people are spending their time. That's where, if I were in your position in an insurance carrier, I would be focused on the disruption and disintermediation that will come from big tech. If I'm a small business customer and I buy stuff on Amazon for my customer, and at the bottom it says, for $199 a month, you can also buy your business insurance, that's where the disintermediation is going to come from. So next on the list is fraud and cybercrime. I won't focus so much on cybercrime simply because that's industry-wide across many industries, a big issue right now. It's not any more specific to insurance, I would say, than any other regulated industry. But I do want to focus in on fraud, especially in the property casualty or the general insurance area, where we can use digital transformation, use cognitive services, use AI, use ML to do things like validate photos of accidents, to fly drones and satellites over houses to be able to take a look at catastrophic damage. There's a lot of opportunity to ferret out fraud using digital transformation technologies, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Second to the last, I want to talk about a really important shift, and that is the shift from simply paying claims to prevention. So for years, the business of an insurance company was take money from customer, invest money, make money, and pay claims. That was pretty clear. Today, nearly every executive I talk to is changing their thinking and saying, let's focus on how to prevent those claims. Let's use technology to be able to prevent that claim from ever happening in the first place. And examples of that include if there's a catastrophic event coming, let's say here in the state of Texas, we have hailstorms. Why not be able to notify all your customers that the hailstorm's coming and getting them to move their cars to a protected area? In a place like Thailand, maybe it's tropical storms. If tropical storms are coming, what can the insurance company do before the claim to both help their customer and to be able to avoid future claims? So a lot of focus, and the same is true in healthcare. A lot of focus on how do we help prevent claims rather than simply paying them. And then finally, the final force at work is this increasing frequency and severity of claims from catastrophic events. No matter where you are on the spectrum of climate change, we do know we're having bigger catastrophic events, and those bigger catastrophic events are happening more and more. So I apologize, we don't have the chance to have Q&A now. At the end of the session, you'll get the chance to ask questions. Those are the forces that we see at work in insurance today. So let me change the topic now to how Microsoft can help our carriers to be able to digitally transform their business. And it happens in 4 main areas. So what I'm going to do for the remaining time that we have together is I'm going to talk about these 4 main areas, and I'm going to give you examples of how we're working with customers to digitally transform their business in these areas. So let's start with the first column on the left. That's empowering employees and agents through work. This was probably one of the key areas to focus on during COVID. It's always been an important area, and that is what tools can you use to help support collaboration, help support communication, and how to support better efficiency and productivity in your workforce. Think about this area, if you think about Microsoft technology and products as Office 365, for instance, all those tools that many of you use for collaboration, communication, and productivity. A great example that I've already covered off, but I'll cover off a little bit more here, is Manulife. Manulife is one of the largest carriers in the world. Their home base is in Canada. They were the ones that before COVID even started had moved the vast majority of their work to the cloud. moved the vast majority of their communications and their collaboration platform to the cloud. So when COVID hit, instead of panicking and understanding how they were going to allow all their employees to work remotely, they were simply able to send their employees home with their laptops to be able to continue to work in nearly the same way that they were when they were working in an office. The second area where we see a lot of opportunity for digital transformation is improving risk modeling and risk management. And I know that for many of you in the room, that might not be the most important topic for you, so I'm going to be brief here. Two elements to this: improving risk modeling in life insurance, which really means actuarial modeling. And actuarial modeling is nothing more than determining how much you have to charge a life insurance customer to make sure that you can make a profit over the life of the policy before they pass away and have money to be able to pay that claim. That's life insurance on the life insurance side. On the property and casualty side, it's about catastrophic risk. You insure 1,000 homes on the coast of Florida. We know that they're going to eventually get hit by a storm. We know if they don't get hit by a storm, eventually sea level rises due to climate change will affect those properties. So this is focusing on how do we at Microsoft help our carriers move those complex risk calculations, which are really high performance computing calculations, from on-premises to the cloud, where they can take advantage of the scale of the cloud to be able to run those models to do three things. One, to be able to improve their pricing. Two, to be able to reduce the amount of reserves that they need to hold, the regulatory reserves that they need to hold to pay claims. And third, to better be able to respond to regulatory requirements that will measure their ability to pay claims. A great example of that is MetLife. I won't go deeply into it, but it's a great example of moving all of that risk modeling from on-prem at MetLife into the Azure cloud. And I'll stop briefly here to say that all of the case studies that I'm sharing with you are public case studies at Microsoft. They're all available on Microsoft.com/customer stories, and your local account teams can help you dig into any of these examples I'm using. The third area of focus for us is helping you as insurance carriers to modernize your core systems. And when I talk about core systems, I talk about the underwriting system, the billing system, the claims system, and the policy management system. It's really, as you know, the heartbeat of what you do. It's the core of your business. What we found at Microsoft is helping customers do two things: either moving their core systems from on-prem, from their own data center, to the Azure cloud, and I'll talk more about why you would do that in a little bit, or what we're doing is taking a look at the different pieces of the puzzle. Underwriting, for example. How can we help customers, our carriers, achieve automated underwriting? How can we help our customers using the cloud and using the Microsoft platform together with our partners? How can we help them improve the claims process? The final part, the final area that we'll focus on is what we call delivering differentiated policyholder experiences. And this is what I was talking about most in these first couple slides. How can we use digital transformation? How can we use Microsoft technologies together with the technologies offered by Microsoft partners to be able to transform the experiences that your customers have with you? The example there is Zurich, and I'll talk a little bit more about that example. So before I close out the slide, let me kind of bring this back to a technology story. So for empower employees and agents through teamwork, that first column, that's around how Microsoft 365, the Microsoft Office, Teams, and all of those solutions can help empower your employees. We talk about risk modeling. We talk about how can Microsoft and Azure, with Azure HPC, high performance computing, help you move from on-prem to the cloud. With modernizing core systems, it's again Azure as a cloud platform to run your core systems. And with delivering differentiated policyholder experiences, it's often tied around Dynamics 365, our sales and service and CRM platform, because we know without a strong sales and service and CRM platform, you won't be able to offer that differentiated policyholder experience because you don't know anything about them. So now let's look at insurance industry scenarios specifically. And let's start with that empower employees and agents through teamwork. As I mentioned before, from a Microsoft perspective, that can leverage things like Microsoft Power BI and Microsoft 365. But an important point that I want to make here is that Microsoft is a platform company. We have an entire group of partners, both locally to you in Thailand, as you know, but also global partners who can take the Microsoft platform and make it work for an insurance company. And that's the last mile of functionality that Microsoft, together with our partners, can not only give you a packaged solution, but a solution that can be more specifically tailored to insurance. The example I'd like to share here that I've already talked about, so I'll be brief, is the one with Manulife. I had the opportunity to speak with the CIO of Manulife right after the beginning of COVID. And he was really relaxed, and I was really surprised because we were all trying to understand how we were going to continue to do business. And his comment back was, hey, we invested early, we invested in the cloud, we invested in capabilities to allow us to work remotely, and he was relaxed. He was able to send his folks home knowing that they could continue to operate and to serve customers because they had that technology groundwork already laid. A week later, I had the opportunity to talk to several other Canadian carriers, and those carriers were in a panic. They hadn't started that move towards digital transformation, that move toward remote work, and they had a whole different set of problems and how they were going to continue and even business continuity in the time of COVID. Let's move then to improving risk modeling, and I'll give you some examples there. As I said, improving risk modeling is being able to model your actuarial risk for life insurance and your catastrophic risk for property and casualty insurance. The reason that you would want to do this as a carrier is that high performance computing running these complex models is very expensive. If you do it on-prem, you have to maintain HPC compute capability in your data center, which, by the way, you don't use every day because you don't run these calculations necessarily every day. And that puts you in a position to have a high fixed cost in your data center for capabilities for HPC that you don't use all the time, and it's just a fixed cost on your balance sheet. So being able to move these calculations for risk modeling from your own data center into Azure is a great way to be able to lower your fixed costs. It also serves 2 or 3 other purposes. It allows you to run your models faster because you have the unlimited compute capability of the cloud and Azure. It allows you to do a really important thing, and that is now that you have your traditional models that you've always run, today there are many new sources of data that you might want to add to that model. Once you're cloud native with this, once you're engaged in the API economy of being able to operate from cloud to cloud, you can begin to incorporate all kinds of new data elements into your risk modeling. So that makes that move to the cloud probably the most prominent thing that most of our carriers have done. Again, Microsoft's the platform. We have a set of partners, Milliman, Moody's, Munich Re, FIS, Willis Towers Watson. All of them have the models and the capability to do risk modeling, both catastrophic and actuarial risk modeling on behalf of the customer. From a Microsoft perspective, products like Microsoft Power BI, Microsoft Azure, Microsoft Office 365, Microsoft Azure HPC. Those are the underlying technologies that our customers are using to accomplish this kind of digital transformation. So just to give you an example, this is Munich Re, a reinsurance company. They have collected over the years, the number's not here, but it's something like 6 petabytes of weather data about weather risks around the world. They're a reinsurance company, so that's what they do in working with their primary insurance companies. They got to the point several years ago where the data was just too big. They couldn't even store it in their data center, let alone do any analysis or any artificial intelligence or machine learning on top of it. So Microsoft worked with Munich Re to be able to move all of that data to Azure and be able to build analytic tools on all of that data to help them be able to better predict weather risks. And again, if you have any investments in investing in covering commercial buildings or home insurance, anything like that, this kind of insight would help reduce your losses. Another example with actuarial risk is MetLife. MetLife had 7 or 8 different actuarial risk projects on-prem in their data centers. Microsoft worked together with them to be able to bring those 7 different actuarial risk initiatives together and then move that from on-prem into the Azure cloud, giving them all the capabilities that I talked about before. So now let's talk a little bit about modernizing core insurance systems. And I'll give you 2 different types of examples. One example is really just picking up, lift and shift your current core banking system from on-prem into the Azure cloud. The other example is moving from one generation of our partner core insurance system providers from an on-prem version to their SaaS version offering in the Azure cloud. This particular solution relies on Microsoft Power BI, Microsoft Azure, and to a certain extent, Microsoft 365. The partnerships on the screen are really important because if you take Majesco, Duck Creek, Sapiens, EIS Group, and others, that's a good portion of what the entire property and casualty market around the world is using in terms of core systems. And we've partnered with those providers of core systems to be able to offer those solutions not only on-prem, but also in the Microsoft cloud. A great example of this is Geico. Geico is the #2 property and casualty insurer in the United States. It traditionally ran its core systems on-prem in their data center. So over the last, I would say, 1.5 or 2 years, we've been working with Geico to help them move some of their core systems from on-premise on their data center into the Microsoft cloud. In this particular example, it was our partnership with a core systems partner called Duck Creek to be able to move their Duck Creek implementation to a more SaaS, Azure-based solution for core systems in the cloud. So what does Geico get out of that? Why would you do that? You do that because by moving your core system to the cloud, you're also moving the vast majority of your data to the cloud about the customer to the cloud, or customer data to the cloud. Once you've got that data in the cloud, it opens up tremendous capabilities for a concept we'll talk about in a little bit around ecosystems, but then you can play in this API economy. Then when the business comes to you as a CIO and says, we want to offer a new product, let's say pet insurance, if you had to stand up a new core system for pet insurance on-prem, it would take you months to do that in your own data center. Now, as a CIO, you can say, sure, I'll spin up another instance of Duck Creek. We'll format it and set it up for pet insurance, and we'll be in business in a couple months instead of a year and a half. So it's that flexibility and the agility that Geico sees in being cloud-based rather than on-prem based. That was their motivation for doing this. I'll share another, what I consider interesting digital transformation example for you from Swiss Re. And this takes a little bit of setup, but I'll be fast. So Swiss Re wanted to get in the business of offering travel insurance. We're all familiar with travel insurance, but this is travel delay insurance. This means if you're late, not if you don't get on the plane, but if you're late. So what Swiss Re and Microsoft did is we gathered all of the on-time flight data, because that exists with the airlines, gathered it all and could analyze every single flight from every single point on the planet to every other point on the planet where that flight flies to. With all of that data, Swiss Re could analyze which flights are traditionally on time and which flights are traditionally late. With that data, that allowed them to price their policies. And this is the way it works. You book a ticket, let's say you're a business traveler, you book a ticket, and you get offered flight delay insurance. And then let's say it's $7.95. Swiss Re is in real time monitoring flight on time data. So when your flight from Bangkok to Los Angeles is late by an hour, Swiss Re already knows that. There's no reason to fill out a claim form. Swiss Re deposits, let's say the $500 for the late arrival of the flight, into your bank account, send you a text when you get off the plane in Los Angeles and you're an hour late, the $500 is already in your account, you've already got the notice, there's no claim to file, it's all done. The reason that's interesting is not because I know many of you want to get into that business. The reason that that's interesting is because there's no claims process. They use data, first of all, to analyze and price each individual flight, but then they used data to be able to say there is no claims process. We know from the airline that that flight was late, pay the person. And the reason I say that is because think about all the insurance products you're thinking about offering. How can you think outside the box in how to make that whole process easier for customers? Already talked about Geico. Let's move on to delivering differentiated policyholder experiences. And again, this starts with typically CRM, business applications, to be able to know and understand the basics about your customers, but to be able to predict things like next best action, next best offer, next best action for your agents to take in order to be better sellers. This particular area is focused in on Microsoft Dynamics 365, sales, service, and marketing. And again, we have a set of partners, and you have a set of partners locally who can take these platforms and build them out to be insurance specific for you. Healthsana is the largest health insurer in Switzerland. They've done exactly that using Dynamics 365 CRM to be able to build better ways to communicate and enhance the customer experience. Zurich Insurance, also in Switzerland, has done the same thing. Dynamics 365, enabling employees across 30 different countries who manage complex commercial line insurance clients to be able to have a single view of the customer. But as we talk about delivering differentiated experience, it's not just about Dynamics CRM. I want to go back to the example of Progressive. So Progressive is, I think, the number 3 property and casualty insurance in the United States. They have a very famous woman who you don't know. She's in the picture there. Her name is Flo. She's in all the advertising. Everybody in America knows who Flo is. And so what we did with Progressive was we used the Azure bot service to create a bot instantiation of Flo. And Flo is so popular, she has 5 million Facebook followers. I'm not talking about Progressive Insurance. Flo, an imaginary woman, has 5 million Facebook followers in the United States. So what we did was we helped to build an Azure bot service for Progressive. The bot's name is Flo. And if you go to Facebook right now, you can be friends with Flo, and Flo, the robot, will talk to you. You can get a quote from Flo. You can get information about your policy from Flo. You can do all kinds of things with this bot that was built on top of Microsoft Azure bot services. So not just about knowing your customer, but being able to have innovative ways to communicate with your customers. So let's change gears for one last time. We talked about the trends, we talked about digital transformation. I gave you some examples of what we're doing today with our customers. I want to take a minute to peer into the future a little bit with two examples. What we see today is vendors working with insurance companies to be able to solve a particular problem. What we see in the future is much stronger partnerships between insurance carriers and Microsoft. So we both have, in English we say, we have skin in the game. We both have commitment. It's not a vendor relationship, it's a partnership between technology companies and insurance carriers. So let me tell you two brief stories. The first is about Allianz. Everybody knows Allianz, either the first or the second largest insurance carrier on the planet. Allianz and Microsoft got together to form a joint partnership. A new company was formed called Sincere. You can see it in the slide. And the purpose of this effort is to allow Allianz to take its core insurance systems, we've been talking about core insurance systems a lot, to open source their core insurance system, place it in the Azure cloud, and offer that core system to other insurance carriers, obviously typically those that are tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 carriers, the ability to use that core system as their core insurance system, especially for small and medium-sized carriers that don't want to or don't believe they have competitive advantage in trying to own and operate their own core system. So each new insurance company would have their own instance of this proven Allianz core system available to them on the Azure cloud. That's what the new Sincere organization, joint partnership between Allianz and Microsoft, will do. It's a strategic partnership. But the most important part of this is then this platform on Azure becomes a platform where we can invite new insurtech companies, new fintech companies onto this platform. So if you're using this core system in the Azure cloud and you want the ability for your customers to file a claim on their mobile phone using photos, and you want to use AI and ML to analyze the photo and to determine how much it's going to cost to fix the car, if you want to do all those things, then you don't have to go out and find it yourself. That can be offered on the Azure cloud as a solution by one of the fintech companies. So there's a lot on the web about this, a lot of details that you can dig deeper on this. The point of this isn't so much what they did, but this idea of emerging ecosystems. It's technology companies working together with fintech companies, working together with insurance carriers. Another example of that is the strategic partnership that Microsoft and Swiss Re have formulated. And this is really about ecosystems. Swiss Re is a reinsurance company, so they have gathered data from many of their primary insurance customers. And just to be clear, I'm not talking about data at the individual level, like, where Jim drove yesterday. I'm talking about aggregating risk data from many different sources to be able to allow insurance companies and others in the ecosystem to be able to assess risk across many different data points. So in this case, Swiss Re and Microsoft are working together to create this digital market center. And this digital market center is a way to combine the risk data that they have together with the risk data that could be brought in from other industries. The example here is Swiss Re partnering with auto manufacturers, because auto manufacturers are the ones that eventually will probably own much of the driving data from the cars they produce. And the question is, how can we bring together the data from the automotive insurance, all that driving data, together with the analytical capabilities of a company like Swiss Re to be able to build risk products that people in many different industries would be able to use. And again, it's not just a vendor relationship where you buy a product from Microsoft. We're talking about working together in a strategic way. And not everybody will be able to work in a strategic way at this level with Microsoft, but I think it's what we want to impress upon you, the change in the way we would like to work with you in Thailand or any other country. And that is as a partnership to help you accomplish something rather than just to sell you something. So I've come to the end of the presentation, and the final thing I want to impress upon you here is that not only does Microsoft offer technology, but hopefully you're a little bit more convinced that we have a point of view and a set of solutions that can help you specifically in insurance carriers. We have folks like my colleagues who are focused just on your industry to help you apply technology to reach your business outcomes. So we can offer you the opportunity for executive briefings, time in our Microsoft Technology Centers, and envisioning centers where we can help discuss technology in the context of insurance. But more specifically, I understand that this keynote session was one to give you the lay of the land, to give you the perspective on the industry and the perspective on how Microsoft thinks about the insurance industry. The good news is, after this, you're going to have the opportunity to work with my colleagues from Thailand, some colleagues from other parts of Asia, to talk about the actual execution of these ideas. So you're going to have sessions to be able to take what we've talked about now, think about and put those in practice from an execution standpoint. Again, before I close, I want to thank the Office of Insurance Commission for giving us the chance to do this. And I wish all luck to all of our carrier customers, insurance carrier customers in Thailand on your digital transformation journey. And thank you for your time.
เนี่ยกำลังหาแอปแต่งรูปอยู่อ่ะนี่ก็เสิร์ชแล้วไล่ดูอยู่โอ้ลิงก์นี้เขาบอกว่า5แอปพลิเคชันน่าสนใจแต่งรูปภาพเข้าไปดูหน่อยดินี่เฮ้ยโหลดฟรีด้วย
โอ้ดูดีว่ะโหลดเลยแก
โหลดเลยมีเวอร์ชันโมบายด้วยลองไหมโหลดด้วยไหนฉันโหลดด้วยเหมือนกันนี่เฮ้ยโอ้โหพอโหลดเสร็จปุ๊บมีป๊อปอัพขึ้นมาด้วยว่าลดราคาช้อปปิ้งออนไลน์เป็นวอเชอร์ลดได้ 3,000 บาทเลยเยอะกว่าแกอีกตะกี้แกได้แค่ 2,000
เอาเลยแก
เอาเลยไหม
ให้หมด
นี่กดเข้าไปเฮ้ยโอ้โหมันขึ้นป๊อปอัพเต็มเลยอ่ะต้องกดอันไหนเนี่ย
กดไปเถอะ
กดไปเลยเนาะไล่ทีละอันเลยเนาะต้องโดนสักอันอ่ะ
มา
จริงเป็นไงโหลดเสร็จไหมมือถือ
โอ้ยโอเคมาละเฮ้ยแกมี SMS อะไรก็ไม่รู้ว่าจากแบงค์บอกให้อัปเดตแอปดูดิ
ไหน
ก็ดูโอเคเนาะ
ดูแปลกๆแต่ก็มันก็ดูโอเคละมั้งอัพไปเถอะเดี๋ยวซื้อของไม่ทัน
โอเคต่อมาเรามาทำความรู้จักเกี่ยวกับ malware กันนะครับหลายคนอาจจะเคยได้ยินคำว่า malware แต่ถามว่า malware คืออะไรให้คิดภาพง่ายๆนะครับ malware ก็เหมือนตัวไวรัสตัวหนึ่งนะครับที่ once นะครับหรือเมื่อมันติดกับคนหนึ่งคนใน user หรือหนึ่งในบุคลากรภายในองค์กรเนี่ยมันสามารถแพร่กระจายได้เหมือนเชื้อไวรัสนะครับไปทั่วทั้งองค์กรเลยนั่นหมายความว่าความรับผิดชอบของทุกๆ user นะครับของทุกๆผู้ใช้งานในองค์กรเนี่ยต้องป้องกันตัวเองนะครับไม่ให้ตัวเองเนี่ยติดเชื้อไวรัสหรือตัว malware กับคอมส่วนตัวของตัวเองนะครับเพราะว่าอย่างที่ผมเรียนไปคือพอมันสามารถแพร่กระจายไปได้ทั้งองค์กรมันจะสามารถไปดูดข้อมูล username password นะครับซึ่งความเสี่ยงเนี่ยมันจะตามมาอีกมากมายนะครับไม่ว่าเราจะได้ยินข่าวบ่อยๆว่าหลายๆองค์กรเนี่ยถูกแฮ็กข้อมูลนะครับถูกขโมยข้อมูลและโดนเรียกค่าถ่ายไม่ว่าจะเป็นเรียกค่าถ่ายเป็นเงินนะครับเป็นบิตคอยน์อันนี้คือความเสี่ยงที่ปัจจุบันเนี่ยแฮกเกอร์นะครับมีการทำนะครับมีการแอทแทคหลายๆองค์กรนั้นแล้วถามว่าเราสามารถป้องกันตัวเองนะครับหรือป้องกันองค์กรเราอย่างไรได้บ้างนะครับ1คือการที่เราจะต้องป้องกันตัวเองเนี่ยเราการท่องเว็บไซต์นะครับเราต้อง make sure ว่าเว็บไซต์ที่เราเข้าไปเนี่ยไม่ได้เป็นเว็บไซต์สุ่ม4สุ่ม5นะครับเป็นเว็บไซต์ที่เป็นเว็บไซต์ที่ well known นะครับที่เรารู้จักกันดีนะครับมีความน่าเชื่อถือหรือไม่ว่าจะเป็นการติดตั้งโปรแกรมอะไรนะครับบนคอมพิวเตอร์เราควรจะติดตั้งโปรแกรมนะครับที่มีลิขสิทธิ์ที่ถูกต้องนะครับคอยหมั่นอัปเดตโปรแกรมเหล่านั้นเพื่อป้องกันช่องโหว่ต่างๆนะครับแล้วก็ท้ายที่สุดไม่ว่าจะเป็นการดาวน์โหลดไฟล์ดาวน์โหลดอีเมลนะครับควร make sure ดีๆว่าสิ่งที่เราดาวน์โหลดมาเนี่ยนะครับไม่ใช่ malware อาจจะมีการแฝงในนั้นนะครับให้เช็คอาจจะทำการสแกนคอมพิวเตอร์เราตลอดเวลานะครับสิ่งเหล่านี้จะเป็นสิ่งที่เราสามารถลดความเสี่ยงให้ทั้งกับตัวเราและก็องค์กรเราในการติดเชื้อนะครับหรือการติดไวรัสจากตัว malware ได้
Hi, welcome back everyone. Let me take you to another session. The last session we already have a session that our expertise already shared the thought leadership from the vision. Now we are going into more details into the execution level. Today we have 3 experts from the Microsoft in APAC here to share their experience and also the learning from their engagement with the insurance company in this region. Let me first introduce Kun Richard. Kun Richard, can you help introduce yourself a little?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Richard. I work for Microsoft Modern Work Solution team. I actually work across Asia region with our customers on their journey on modern work. Most of the time, I see a lot of insurance company, how they transform, how they enable their agents. Today, we'll show you some of that.
Thank you, Kun Richard. Hi, Kun John. Next,
Hi, thank you, Saudi Cap. So my name is John Chan. I'm part of a team in Microsoft that looks after a portfolio of solutions that helps customers essentially look after their business and run their business. So it's a portfolio that's called a Dynamics CRM and Power Platform. And I'm also working across the Asia region, specifically working with financial services institutions. And I'm very happy to be here today to kind of share some learnings that I've personally learned and a Microsoft point of view on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Kun Salim, please.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your time. My name is Salim Naim. I'm responsible for the Azure AI portfolio across Asia. I manage a team of specialists that engage with customers to envision, plan, and design and deploy solutions that leverage their data and use advanced analysis techniques such as machine learning on top of that. Specifically in insurance companies, I'm happy to share with you, the type of engagements that we've had with insurance companies across the regions, how they're using their ever-increasing data and applying advanced analysis methods, and what are we learning from some of these organizations of things that they're doing well and things that hopefully you can learn from the areas that to avoid so that you can help achieve your business objectives in a much more effective manner.
Thank you, Ms. Salim. Yep. Okay. So let me start. Then. Okay. As we all can see that there's many aspects of the digital transformation from Dennis that he already sharing. I think the first one that is kind of interesting of everyone here is the empowering employee and agents to dream work. Kun Richard, in your role and the engagement with the insurance companies, can you help share the highlight of the use case in the digital transformation in this region?
Sure. Let me just share one slide where I talk through this. I also prepared a short demo so that you see kind of like a prototype of this at the end. This is a typical insurance agent day in a life, I call it. An agent kind of start the day, looking into leads, prepare leads, contact the leads, qualify it, schedule a meeting, and then follow up and drive to closure, right? Here we actually map out what are the traditional touch points before COVID. You typically do this, use your agent app. You probably use Line as a way to contact and message, and even calling with the customer. And then you use your agent app to do the proposals, the scheduling, and the closure submission or the proposal and the coverage plan with your client. Now, at the lower tier, you will actually see how this is changed with some of the customers that we work with teams. Now, let me just walk you through this new journey with teams that actually empower the agent to do things a lot more different. When you do the leads management, the preparation, those does not change. We are not here to replace your agent app. You still use your agent app to look at the leads assigned to you, look at the perspective or leads and research on it. You will still probably use the consumer mobile app to connect and discuss this with the clients. Now, this is where the step is a little bit different. To help you comply with some of the regulations like PDPA, things in FSI regulations in terms of all the transactions has to be recorded, and some of this data need to be kept and retained for 7 years. What we work with some insurance company to do is once that warm up ice-breaking conversation is done, you actually send a Teams meeting link to the client instead of going to a physical meeting with the client. And then you will go to the client app, make sure you get all the assessment information done after the initial meeting. And then you present back over a virtual meeting link. Again, you send to the client and you discuss what's the right thing for them and make offer. And then last, if they are not ready to buy, you probably schedule a meeting again. If not, you will actually facilitate a signature as well as submission of proposal 100% virtually over Teams so that they can see what you are doing and you can see what they are doing during the submission process. Of course, this facilitates some other scenario like how do I enable agent readiness? I can use town hall as well as virtual training webinar capabilities in Teams. We have customer use this for Teams, huddle, and virtual meetings insurance agent teams, you kind of get together sometimes. The leaders will tell the agents what do they need to do and how they should progress on the engagement. And there's a chat capability, allow them to collaborate from there. Now, that's high levelly how teams kind of fit in. Might be a little bit difficult for you to picture, right? Know how this really works. I have a very quick mock-up demo we did, and we did this with a couple of customers. So it's a good example where I show you the demo video. You can actually see how this happens in real time. Now, once I send the Teams meeting link to the client, both the client and agent will actually join an insurance sales session or a Teams meeting. Now, there's a couple of verification process is mandatory by regulator. Number one, you see the recording is turned on so that I'm actually sharing the agent screen in Teams meeting. So as a customer, you actually see exactly what the insurance agent is doing. Verification by sharing location. So you know the agent is someone based off in Thailand, right? In my demo is Hong Kong, but in your case, the customer is confident, hey, this is not a scam call. This is someone that actually physically in Bangkok itself. Second verification is that they will put on camera and they will take a picture of their name card issued by the insurance company. This is required for the second verification to say at least you have an appropriate name card. And I know you have your working email validated. It's the same email you use to sign into Teams. And you have a valid phone number. All these things I can validate. So I'm confident you are an insurance agent, work for the insurance company. Now, the last but not least, you can also ask the agent to turn on the camera, right? So look at the surrounding because location can be faked. Business card can be faked as well. Turning on the camera that allow you to validate what's in the background of the person and where they are, build another level of confidence. So this is a typical process we help you to build that virtual validation system. Now, once you are in the extra sessions, you discuss your proposals, you send those proposals digitally. Because this is all recorded, right? Everything goes to a repository where it's regulator controlled. You can actually audit those contents whenever you need it. In this case, a proposal is already agreed. I will send that over to the customer. And because Teams allow you to record and annotate on a piece of information without saving to local PC, the customer can actually see this and annotate and sign on top of the document. Again, the signature process is recorded as well. So both agent and customer are very clear what they are getting into. In few countries we work with, this actually meets regulatory requirements for sanitary authorization for insurance customer onboarding. So that's a very quick demo. And what I share with you is that this is something very easy for you to think about. Where do I use Teams in the journey of the agent customer service? That's all. Hope this is something that gave you a little bit idea how you can transform going forward.
Wow, thank you, Kun Richard. That is really interesting. I think that will probably help transform the agent here in Thailand. Now let's move up into the business process, right? We already discussed from the front end side, from the agent. Now we move to the back end. John, I will pass the same question to you. Kindly share on your line of work related to the process transformation.
Yeah, no, so thank you. So from a business process transformation, we're seeing a lot of different kind of areas of interest across the region. For example, we're seeing some insurance providers looking at transforming their distribution. So to that point, Rich is showing us a little bit around the kind of the journey from an agent's perspective. You know, we have a very complementary solutions in the Microsoft stack. Besides the Teams, but also with the Dynamics, which helps the agent really prioritize and focus on the right leads to kind of look at. So that's one area that we're seeing a lot of interest in. The other area is really around the actual servicing side of things. So servicing from obviously a policyholder perspective, but also from the agent as well. And then as part of the whole, I guess, scaling out the whole distribution model as well, we're seeing a lot of interest around how we can help insurance companies really kind of recruit and onboard and train new agents. So there's a lot of different areas that we're seeing interest. And I guess to bring it to life, I want to just kind of do something very similar to what Richard just showed you now, but just really kind of just talk through a couple of business processes that we're seeing. So Richard kind of talked through how that agent, day in the life of an agent looked like, but he was very focused around the productivity and how he could use teams. Let me just share my screen right now and do a very similar business process, but kind of point out how do we help agents really kind of focus on the right things to do when they're talking to the actual policyholder or a prospect. So if I just quickly share my screen, what you'll see is a very similar business process to what Richard just showed you right now. But I really want to focus on kind of the areas where an agent gets, in many ways, prompted or nudged to act upon certain alerts or certain actions and events that will eventually and ultimately enhance the actual experience for the agent as well as for the customer. So for example here, very similar to what Richard showed you, but if you look at some of the things that we've seen happen, for example, when we see a common issue with a lot of agents getting a lot of leads coming in. Number one, how do you make sure that the leads are being assigned correctly? Number two, once you get that lead assigned to an agent, how do you make sure that the agent is actually going to be chasing and following up on the right leads? So being notified and then using some kind of predictive lead scoring to basically have an agent focus in. So using technology, using artificial intelligence and algorithms from that to basically help an agent focus. Once they've actually then decided on which leads to kind of pursue and follow up on, enriching that customer data, enriching the information about a prospect, so that when you go into those meetings, where it would be through Teams, you have talking points gleaned from insights around that particular customer, if they're an existing policyholder of yours, or if there are prospects gleaned from third-party systems. As we know now, with the insurance industry, it's getting very disrupted, and insurance providers are really looking at building out ecosystems with other partners. Traditionally, those partners have been like banks, but we're seeing other partners come in now. For example, telcos, especially with life insurance, we're seeing ecosystems, including healthcare partners. So being able to take some of that information, some of that data, enriching it so that when, as an agent, I go in and talk to my prospect, I actually have some talking points. And then obviously based off the demographics of the prospect, again, using AI to start prompting the agent to suggest the next best offer or the next best action for this particular agent. Now, as we know, these processes can be very complex for insurance providers. So as you can see in the middle of this slide, guiding an agent through a prospect and through that process is very important as well. The needs analysis, etc., depending on the different needs of the customer as well, branching off into different kind of sub activities and subtasks. So having those processes, guiding that, or in some cases even automating that, is very valuable and crucial to drive efficiency and productivity of an agent. As you can see here, towards the end, we're kind of repeating what Rich is saying with using Teams from a collaboration perspective. So really looking at the whole overall end-to-end process, this is one of the ways in which we've seen the Microsoft solution stack really enhance the business process for an agent. If I may just quickly spend a couple more minutes, the other thing I mentioned just now is there's a lot of focus now on recruitment of agents. As the industry gets disrupted, there's a lot of challenges around not just recruiting the right agents, but also onboarding them, as well as training them and basically keeping them incentivized and motivated to stay with the insurance provider. So if we look at the next slide, a very similar business process that I can show you. which is really around recruitment and onboarding of an agent. And again, what we'll see here is how the Microsoft solution stack can really help, but in particular, enhancing this through not just automating some of the capabilities and some of the process, but also using AI to really drive some efficiencies. So from the recruitment side, having a chatbot and using cognitive services so that when an agent or a prospective agent comes along and tries to submit all his application and paperwork to become an agent, through to the onboarding and training of that particular agent, all of that can be enhanced and delivered through the Microsoft stack. So I don't. There's a lot of opportunities, I guess, in this in driving efficiencies around the back-end business processes, around agents, around customers, etc.
Okay,
Over back to you.
Thank you, John. I think that's really interesting how we're going to transform the agent. I think for the digital onboarding and management, I think that's very interesting. Now come to you, Kun Salim. I think on the data side, we know that this is a really critical part. I mean, for the digital transformation, especially in the insurance industry. So, from your point of view, can you share about your highlights that you've been working with in this region?
Yeah, no, look, I mean, thank you. You know, just building on what Richard and John shared, Richard shared with you that, how you're approaching digitizing the customer interaction and the customer journey. And some of this was accelerated from COVID. Some of it were things that the industry was already doing to digitize that journey. And John spoke about that journey doesn't just stop with the interaction with the customer. It flows all the way through to the agent, the way you action and respond to the various mid and back office processes that are required to execute on that. What that means is that you have more and more and more data that you're accumulating. You have this increasing amount of data that you're accumulating, and there are so many opportunities to how you can use that data to automate, streamline, even reinvent different ways that you can interact or offer your products or services. What I will do is I'll share my desktop just to, this is from a diagram that came out of a study that the World Economic Forum published around the 2018-2019 timeframe. And I just want to have that as a backdrop so you can get a good summary of what we're seeing as far as how data is being used in this manner. So I'll just I'll put up the slide and talk to that. I'll put that into presentation mode and just build that out so you can get a view of it. The way data, that ever increasing amount of data that I referenced to, is it's being used in two ways. It's helping you do what you do today better. So I'll talk through on the bottom half of what are some of those examples of how data and advanced analysis techniques that use machine learning and AI are being used to help you be leaner, faster in your operation, all the way through to how data is being used across your value chain to make smarter decisions or even create new value propositions for your products or services. By far, the majority of what we see across the region of how data is being used starts with, that leaner, faster operations. Richard showed that some of those digital interactions, are capturing new forms, new digital pictures, unstructured data that you probably in the past haven't had to capture or even analyze. So a lot of the things around that leaner operations is, you're seeing use of optical character recognition, ways that you can get some of these forms quickly processed in a way that allows you to make decisions around that. The layer above that of how data is being used is really back to what John was highlighting. So that now that you have this data, he mentioned across, for the agents, the ability for them to use the data and tailor the types of recommendations that they make for the customer. Borrow some of the things that we've seen from the online retail industry for many years, which is propensity modeling and getting to know the customer behavioral data and use that behavioral data as a way to tailor what you offer to that particular customer, or even offer advice and to the agent in order for them to kind of tailor their interaction with the end customer. The data is also being used to kind of enhance that digital channel. We already see with a number of insurance companies that they say, well, that idea that my customer, for some of the servicing requests, can I offer them a 24/7 AI powered way that they can interact with us that offloads, a lot of the traditional customer service related requests. So you're definitely seeing, a lot of the conversational AI capabilities coupled with a knowledge base, the data that you have across all of your customer service, all of that interactions that you're having with customers being used to streamline and automate that entire experience in a servicing capacity. A lot of the data that you have in that mid office and back office for processing claims, you're using it to look at how can I even streamline that entire office entirely, so that I look at the 80-20, the 80% of the scenarios where that claim could be learned, the characteristics of that particular claim could be learned by a machine learning model, and through the data that I've accumulated, build a degree of confidence to, automate its entire, that straight through processing of that particular request without even having anyone in my organization look at it, so that, I used my staff for the 20% of the scenarios that they could spend time understanding the nuances, the type of things that they need to consider, and offer a much better tailored customer experience, offloading a lot of the workload from them for that, automated straight through processing, for that smarter decision, which is really all based around that accumulated data and building decisioning on top of that. And last, you see a number of insurance companies around the globe, as well in the region, that they introduce use-based insurance policies, which is all about the data. I tailor my my policy and tailor the fees that I pay based on my consumption, on how how much do I use my car, or how tailor my life insurance on how fit is my lifestyle. So you see a lot of these use-based insurance propositions, which is all about collating the data of how your end customer is behaving or using the product that you're trying to insure, and tailoring your premiums around that, which again that opens up a whole new avenue of new propositions that you can offer, which could only be achieved today with the advancements that we have in analyzing this large volume of data and having much more advanced techniques to apply on top of that. So this is a depiction of how this increasing amount of digital data is being used across insurance companies, for them doing things smarter, all the way to things that they're using that data to do things drastically or radically different to what they have done in the past. Now, one of the things that I do want to share with you is the learnings, because I could share with you and inspire the type of examples of how this increased data is being used and advanced AI is being applied on top of that. But that journey is not a smooth journey. I do want to say that we do see obstacles that a lot of these insurance companies and even outside of the insurance companies that customers are facing by using increased number of data and applying more advanced methods. I won't spend time going through every single one of those items, but the key point is, the quality of the data is always an issue. Do I have the right people with the skills that allow me to process this data? Do I have advanced data scientist techniques if I'm to apply more complex analysis methods on top of that? Where do I start? Which scenario do I use? A lot of organizations are familiar with descriptive analytics, capturing data for reporting, operational needs. They're not necessarily used to how do you use data for transforming a business process or an aspect of your value chain. So that muscle of how do you identify that use case, prioritize that use case, and operationalize that use case is new to them. So these are the type of challenges that we also see that are getting in the way of broad adoption of all of the areas that I mentioned in the previous slide on how you can do things faster or do things radically different, which is the spectrum of how data and AI is being used across insurance companies. The learnings that we've seen is there's a few there's 4 key elements that we've observed from those insurance companies that have been very successful in how they've used their data. And these are all equally as important. They do have a strategy of being data driven, a top down endorsement across their organization that we would like to use this data to make better decisioning. We're accumulating large amount of data, and we want to use this data to feed it back in to improve the customer experience, or feed that back into enhancing the mid or back office functions. So this strategy and this drive for the culture to using data to make decisions and using data to enhance a process or an aspect of the customer interaction is important, because it's not a technology-led change. The next thing is they bring that to life, because it is going to be a journey to using your data in different ways from what you have used, what you're currently accustomed to, is that they have a roadmap based on use cases that are prioritized and have direct linkages to outcomes across your value chain. These use cases, again, not a technology-led, they're looking at what aspect of that particular value chain can I improve? How can we quantify that it's improved? And they're approaching the use of data and advanced analysis methods, not from a technology perspective, but by which use case provides the highest value, and building on top of that to bring to life that strategy that exists at the executive level. Of course, they need technical capabilities to achieve that. And, we believe at Microsoft that we have, a best-in-class platform to allow you to ingest data, store the data, analyze it to meet your current and future needs. We embrace a number of open standards because we understand that a lot of the innovation around AI requires innovation from the open source community, so that it's not proprietary technology, and of course it has to be secure, well managed, and operated. So the technical capabilities that you need are equally as critical as the other two. But last, it's the operating model. The way they are approaching the identification of where value could be delivered, the way they are having their analytics teams, their IT operations teams, their business units work together, and the operating model that they have all of these different multifunctional stakeholders work together to address problems in a data-driven method is different, and we would welcome, in future sessions talking to you about some of getting deeper into all of these areas and sharing our best practices.
Thank you, Kun Salim. I think you already help address on the second point that I'm about to ask. Yep, on the best practice or the lesson learned from the engagement. In that case, I'll probably move to Kun Richard from the empowering employee and agents in terms of your view. Since you already highlight the use case and everything, can you share what would be the lesson learned of those engagement? What would be the success factor, or what the obstacle that you've been engaging with?
To be honest, the obstacles is always the regulations and the rules within the country, right? Thailand, you have your PDPA. It's important to look at the technology that makes sure that it works for the process and regulations that's in country. For PDPA law, Teams meets the requirements, and it has the tools, as I show you, to address some of those concerns. Those are always the challenge. How do you implement in a way that meets the local regulatory requirement? Different technologies do enable you to do different things, but that technology factor that's placed hugely in the regulation that you are governed under. So that's typically the challenge where we see in all countries. They need to make sure that's being addressed before any adoption going forward.
Kun Richard, since you just mentioned about the Thai PDPA law, as we all know that the Thai PDPA will enforce in June of next year. In terms of Microsoft, how you think how things can help address all those security and the data protection requirements?
Yeah, so we actually have a white paper around how do we address PDPA and GDPR related requirements. I call it 7 steps to achieve that. From the way you discover data, identify data, label them, to retention and e-discovery, right? All those are actually in place for customers to leverage. We also have actually a Thai PDPA template for all Office 365 customers. You can actually take that template and do a real-time assessment to say, what are the configurations, settings, recommended, the things that I need to do so that my Office 365 Teams environment meets the law and regulation requirement for Thailand. That really simplifies your journey to say, hey, how do I make sure that this works? And this is from the same framework where we help a lot of Europe customers to comply with GDPR. Essentially, we took the learning and we implemented in a Thai PDPA kind of context.
Thank you, Kap. Okay, Kun John, back to you then. In terms of the learning, I think the process will be probably the most difficult thing for people to try to change. They're kind of very reluctant to change, right? I mean, from your point of view, what the lesson learned from you on those engagements?
Yes, so thank you for that question. So in many ways, maybe I'll be repeating a lot of the things that Salim and Rich have been talking about through some of the challenges that we've seen. But you're absolutely right. Adoption typically is the biggest challenge when we see moving forward. When an organization has decided to go on a digital transformation, they've kind of decided on the priorities and they're implementing technology. At the end of the day, is how do they get the organization to adopt? And in many ways, it's even more different for insurance providers because, especially for the agent workforce is essentially a third party, in many cases, workforce. So how do you even motivate this potentially non-captive or captive agents to kind of work on your behalf and to adopt the technology? So, we've worked with a lot of organizations. One of the things that we try and do, number one, from a technology perspective, is to make things simple, simplify the things, the tools that they're using. So in many ways, what you've seen today through either through Teams or through some of the examples that I've shown before. Put the tools in the hand of the agent so that they are focused on actually building the customer relationship. So like I mentioned, the way that we have during that sales journey, nudges in nudging the agent to do certain things at the right time. That just makes it simple. That makes it easy for the agent. And then it makes them focus on the right things and adopt the technology. So those are the kind of things that we've definitely learned from the agent experience. From a policyholder experience, it's the flip side of that. So how do I make sure then, because the agent's being nudged in the right direction at the right timing on the particular life events, I'm getting that proactive reach out from the agent and ultimately from the insurance provider. So there's basically having that intelligence and the insights and the intelligence to do the right thing at the right time is how you can help drive some of the adoption. The other thing that we at Microsoft recognize is obviously being a technology provider, helping our customers adopt our technology and is also very key. So we do have teams in place to kind of help drive and do that. We have, for example, customer success organizations that go in and help and work together and collaborate with our customers to kind of help them on that change management and adoption journey. But yeah, so that's one key thing. The other thing is what we've also learned is that I think Salim mentioned that this is a journey, a digital transformation that could take multiple steps, which could take multi-year journey. Every customer has different priorities. The main thing is that we find is that so long as the organization has a very clear strategy around how they want to approach digital transformation and how, what that roadmap looks like, how we help them, it then is a lot more simple. So we have organizations where we worked where they've gone very aspirational and want to be doing, for example, transforming that whole agent workforce. So we've worked with organizations, for example, in the US, where what I showed you around the recruitment, onboarding, and the sales journey, that they're actually going big bang and they want to go in and totally transform that workforce. Through to other providers that we've worked with, for example, here in Oceania, where we've worked with insurance provider where they were really focused on just driving efficiencies. So they really looked at some of the manual processes. In insurance, typically claims processing is a very manual process, which with very repetitive tasks. So looking at that kind of business process, even though it's very, very small, I guess, in comparison, but they just driving efficiencies through that also helps. So really, regardless of where you are in that journey as an organization, everyone's at a different point. So long as you have that strategy and that roadmap, you can really start embarking on digital transformation and really start reaping the benefits of technology and how you can improve and drive efficiencies across the organization.
Thank you, Kun John. But by the way, I mean, since you've been working across the whole APAC, right? I mean, from country to country, from one culture to one culture, you think that the culture will play an important role in this kind of engagement on this as well?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that's a good point. And I think Dennis touched upon this as well. The culture of an organization, as well as the cultural differences between different countries definitely plays a part. But I think ultimately, the new paradigm that we're in, the new normal that we're in right now, ultimately there's a desire to improve the experience and the engagement that organizations have with the end policyholder as well as the agent workforce and the employees. So I think there may be slight differences between culturally and maybe the different focuses areas. For example, I've been working with organizations in Japan. They have an aging workforce. And actually their focus now is how do I reach out and use technology to empower a workforce, an agent workforce, which is older than your typical workforce. But ultimately they're still focusing on that experience. Whereas working with some providers in India where they're really focused on the end policyholder and the end customer experience. But again, as I mentioned, really, it's ultimately down to the experience and how the agent interacts with them. So they're all intertwined. I think overall, what we're seeing in the insurance industry is a desire just to improve the engagement across the whole spectrum of stakeholders. And there's just some slight differences between the different countries, but everyone still has that big picture in mind, I think.
Okay, thank you, Kun John. Yeah, that's very insight. I think that's come to the last question. I think we already discussed that. I think all three of you already shared the highlight, the benefit, right, of all the digital transformation in each of the aspects, from the data, from the employee, from the agent, and the process point of views. And we already discussed what would be the lesson learned, the success factor, or even the obstacles for this. And I think the next would be the call to action then for the Thai insurance company. I mean, from your point of view, what would be the call to action then? Let me start with Kun Richard then in that case.
I think for the employee side of things, right, the easiest place we see insurance company to start with, and John spoke to this a little bit, is how do you use things like town hall, webinars to enable your agent, make sure they are still engaged and they learn the new offerings and new things that you are pushing out to the market, so they are equipped. And do it in a compliant way to your regulation with PDPA. Earlier, I talked about how Teams actually does that for you as well. So that's usually a very, very good starting point. And I will encourage you to explore how to leverage Teams to enable some of those agent readiness, agent onboarding, make it part of the process so you can attract more talents actually work for you.
Thank you. John?
Yeah, just building on that theme from Richard, I think if we were to do like a next step, very short term, I mean, what we're seeing that's very common now is just how can we help organizations drive efficiencies and be more intelligent about the process, automating some of the processes. So as I mentioned, one of the organizations we've worked in Oceania is really thinking about this, but almost every single organization that we're talking to is really thinking about that. So really, looking at automating a lot of the manual processes that exist in insurance, and then for the next level after that is to make it intelligent. How do we make sure that we're doing the right things at the right time with the right on the right events? I know it's digital transformation is a very big thing. I'm sure a lot of organizations sometimes are even wondering where they start, and I think Salim kind of alluded to that as well. But we at Microsoft can help. We have methodologies and frameworks that can help work with customers to kind of define that roadmap, what we call this 3 horizon kind of roadmap, where we can look at, horizon 1, which is very short-term, incremental, yet impactful kind of things that we could do, through to horizon 3, which would be more strategic, more aspirational as well. So there are, resources that are available from Microsoft. So I would also encourage any organization that has that longer term view and wondering where to start is to engage with Microsoft and see if it makes sense to kind of sit down and do what we call essentially a digital transformation plan together.
Yeah, thank you, John. Kun Salim, back to you then.
Look, on the data side, my first call to action would be, most organizations like yourselves will be using data today in an operational setting. How many interactions do we have? How many claims? How long does it take to submit a claim? It's just really looking at ways that you do operationally and track maybe progress against your strategy. The real opportunity with this increased amount of data as you digitize your customer journeys and your mid and back office functions is that now you will have data that allows you to analyze that data and inform the strategy, as opposed to just tracking progress operationally on how well I execute aspect of my business. And that's really the bit that, moves from how many claims did I received today compared to yesterday, compared to last month, compared to last year, to what are the characteristics of a good claim compared to the bad claim, and which claim can I automate straight through processing within 90% accuracy and confidence, as opposed to ones that, I really needed a human to have a look at it. So that's that shift that I'm referring to, that it's not just looking at things operationally, but looking at that data to feed it back and change the strategy of that particular function. So that's the first part, which is really think about this data not just in an operational setting, but how can it transform that particular process and that function. The second is a large amount of the data that you will accumulate in your digitization journey is not going to be tabular. It will not be captured in a form. It will be, as what Richard showed, it will be snapped with a camera. It will be a scanned form. So on the technology side, you have to feel just as comfortable working with this unstructured data, because by far that will be a larger volume than what you have in your systems of record and your line of business systems, where it's very well structured tabular data. So I encourage you, the call to action is to really work with your technology team to say, how well are we building that muscle on the unstructured data? Because that's going to serve you very well, because 90% of that digital data will be unstructured. And if you're unable to analyze it and make the decisions and automate and do all the intelligent things that we highlighted on it, then that means you will, from the outset, you'll be limited to how much of the problem space you can tackle. The third is, it's a journey. Like when you look at all the different use cases of how different insurance companies are using data for doing things better or transforming their business, looking at it and saying it's not a journey that you're going to do all of these use cases. Pick something that allows you to get confident with your ability to transform that process, validate the technical capabilities that you need, deliver the business value, give the business more confidence that more advanced analysis method, more automation that's enabled by AI is possible, and that they have a degree of trust and with this level of automation that you can then just build on top of more and more and more and more to achieve, that higher level of automation and straight through processing type capabilities. So, that famous saying, the journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. Don't be too precise on what that first step is, but start with one use case that you can deliver holistically, deliver value, build confidence with the business, and then expand.
Thank you, Kun Salim. I think the audience, you can see that, from all three experts here, I think we got a very valuable information from all three. I think for me, I think the call to action is that you should start right now. Whatever your priority is, I think that is up to your business. Okay, thank you, Kun Salim and Kun John and Kun Richard for sharing. I think the best action is priority is, I think it's better to get started. Before we leave, I would like to thank you to Kun John, Kun Salim, and Kun Richard. Any words from three of you?
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yep,
Thank you for listening to us.
Thank you ครับสำหรับเซสชันถัดไปนะครับจะเป็นเซสชันจากคุณวสุพลนะครับคุณวสุพลจะเป็น Head of Azure นะครับของ Thailand นะครับคุณวสุพลจะมาแชร์ในส่วนของ Partner Solution นะครับที่ทำกับทาง Microsoft นะครับในส่วนของเรื่องของตัว EKYC นะครับงั้นเดี๋ยวผมขออนุญาตส่งต่อให้ทางคุณวสุพลครับขอบคุณครับ
ผมวินวสุพลนะครับจาก Microsoft นะครับเป็น Business Group Lead นะครับดูในส่วนของตัวกลุ่มผลิตภัณฑ์ Microsoft Azure นะครับวันนี้จริงๆที่อยากจะมาเล่าเรื่องนะครับก็คือเรื่องของตัว EKYC เข้าใจว่ามีคำถามเข้ามาเยอะนะครับว่าถ้าแต่ละหน่วยงานแต่ละบริษัทนะครับประกันเนี่ยที่ต้องทำตัว eKYC ขึ้นมาใช้ในองค์กรเพื่อรองรับลูกค้าเพื่อจะช่วยอำนวยความสะดวกให้ลูกค้าเนี่ยในการที่จะยืนยันตัวตนนะครับผ่านทางช่องทางดิจิทัลเนี่ยมันต้องทำอย่างไรได้บ้างนะครับผมยังมองถึงสิ่งที่คุณจรแชร์อยู่ว่ามันจะต้องเป็น automate process เพื่อช่วยให้ลูกค้ามี experience ในการใช้งานที่ดีกว่าช่องทาง physical ด้วยซ้ำนะครับการจะทำอย่างนั้นได้นะครับเทคโนโลยีจะเข้ามาช่วยในการเสริมส่วนนี้นะครับผมขออนุญาตยกตัวอย่างเร็วนะฮะอย่างตอนที่เราต้องถ่ายบัตรประชาชนเสร็จใช่ไหมครับต้องถ่ายหน้าตัวเองเพื่อไปยืนยันเนี่ยนะครับปัจจุบันเนี่ยมันจะมี AI นะครับบน Microsoft ที่จะเข้ามาช่วยในเรื่องของการตรวจเช็คดูว่าทั้งสองคนนี้คือคนเดียวกันหรือเปล่านะครับแต่แค่นั้นไม่พอ experience ถัดมาคือมันควรจะต้องเอาข้อมูลจากตัวบัตรประชาชนนะครับไปกรอกให้ในฟอร์มต่างๆได้เลยนะครับการจะทำอย่างนั้นได้เนี่ยเราสามารถที่จะอาศัยตัว automation อาศัยในเรื่องของ AI นะครับในเรื่องของการอ่านตัวหนังสือไทยนะครับจากรูปภาพของบัตรประชาชนขึ้นมาได้นะครับซึ่งตัวนี้คือความแตกต่างที่เรามองว่าเทคโนโลยีจะเข้ามาช่วยทำให้process หรือ experience ของลูกค้าในการทำ eKYC ง่ายขึ้นซึ่งทั้งหมดเนี่ย Microsoft สามารถตอบโจทย์ได้นะครับผมอยากจะขออนุญาตเอาสไลด์ขึ้นมาให้ดูหนึ่งหน้านะครับในสไลด์เนี่ยจะเห็นเลยครับว่า Microsoft เรานะครับมีโซลูชันหลายๆตัวไม่ว่าจะเป็น Microsoft 365นะครับตัว Dynamics 365นะครับตัว Power Platform นะครับทั้งหมดเนี่ยนะครับรันอยู่บนตัว Microsoft Azure ซึ่งเป็น Cloud Platform นะครับที่ Microsoft เราออกแบบมาเพื่อตอบโจทย์ลูกค้าองค์กรในการที่คุณจะเอา workload ที่สำคัญมารันและที่สำคัญคุณยังสามารถต่อยอดไม่ว่าจะเป็นการใช้ฟังก์ชัน AI นะครับใช้ฟังก์ชันอื่นๆเพื่อช่วยให้การสร้างแอปพลิเคชันการสร้าง Digital Channel เนี่ยมันเร็วขึ้นมันสะดวกขึ้นแต่เหนือสิ่งอื่นใดคือเราทำตัว Microsoft Azure Platform เนี่ยเพื่อตอบโจทย์ของคำว่า Trusted Platform หรือ Trusted Cloud ให้กับลูกค้าเพื่อลูกค้าจะได้คลายความกังวลในเรื่องของความปลอดภัยในเรื่องของการบริหารจัดการในเรื่องของ compliance ที่ทุกๆคนต้องเผชิญนะครับแต่เหนือสิ่งอื่นใดฮะเพื่อตอบโจทย์ลูกค้าในประเทศไทย Microsoft เราเชื่อว่ามันจะมีโซลูชันหลายๆอันที่จะเข้ามาเสริมตรงนั้นแล้วอาจจะเป็นโซลูชันของคนไทยด้วยกันเอง Microsoft เราเลยมีอีกขาหนึ่งที่ว่าเรามีการเวิร์กกับพาร์ทเนอร์คนไทยเรานะครับในการที่จะทำโซลูชันเฉพาะทางขออนุญาตยกตัวอย่างง่ายๆครับสมมุติถ้าเราต้องทำ eKYC เราต้องเก็บบัตรประชาชนของลูกค้าเราใช่ไหมครับพอเราได้บัตรประชาชนมาเนี่ยความรับผิดชอบของท่านเริ่มแล้วนะครับตามกฎหมาย PDPA ท่านจะต้องเก็บรักษาข้อมูลส่วนบุคคลเช่นบัตรประชาชนเนี่ยนะครับอย่างถูกต้องและเหมาะสมนะครับอย่างในเชิงของว่าการรักษาความปลอดภัยการป้องกันในเรื่องของข้อมูลส่วนบุคคลสูญหายนะครับแต่ยิ่งกว่านั้น sensitive information อย่างเช่นศาสนาที่อยู่บนบัตรประชาชนเนี่ยนะครับมันทำให้หน่วยงานหรือองค์กรต่างๆเนี่ยต้องดูแลให้มันเข้มข้นมากขึ้นเราก็มีโซลูชันของพาร์ทเนอร์เรานะครับซึ่งเป็นพาร์ทเนอร์คนไทยเองนะครับที่ไม่ว่าจะเป็นทางแอปแมนที่ผมมั่นใจว่าทางหลายๆองค์กรก็ใช้งานอยู่นะครับหรือแม้กระทั่งอย่างของ C Trust นะครับซึ่งทั้งสองฝั่งเนี่ยทำในเรื่องของ document automation process นะครับที่ทำในเรื่องของการแกะข้อมูลจากรูปภาพนะครับให้มาเป็น Data เพื่อเอาไปฟิลใส่ในฟอร์มได้นะครับแต่ยิ่งกว่านั้นที่เราเวิร์กต่อก็คือว่าทั้ง2พาร์ทเนอร์สามารถทำในเรื่องของการ masking ข้อมูลที่เป็น sensitive data เนี่ยนะครับเพิ่มเข้าไปให้ด้วยเพราะฉะนั้นบัตรประชาชนที่เราเก็บเป็นไฟล์รูปภาพมาเราสามารถมาร์คสีดำเข้าไปทับในเรื่องของศาสนาในเรื่องของเชื้อชาติอะไรก็ตามที่เราไม่ต้องการข้อมูลพวกนั้นเนี่ยได้นะครับมันจะทำให้เราลดความเสี่ยงในการที่จะต้องรับมือกับการเก็บข้อมูลส่วนบุคคลเนี่ยหรือข้อมูลที่เป็น sensitive data เนี่ยนะครับของลูกค้าเราได้ดีขึ้นนะครับแต่เหนือสิ่งอื่นใดเลยโซลูชันของพาร์ทเนอร์เราทั้งคู่เนี่ยครับรันอยู่บน Microsoft Azure ซึ่งเป็น Cloud Platform นะครับทำไมถึงบอกว่าเป็น Cloud Platform ผมขออนุญาตไปหน้าถัดไปนะครับในหน้าถัดไปเนี่ยตัว Cloud Platform ของเรานะครับ เป็น trusted cloud ที่ว่า1เราตอบโจทย์2เรื่องแรกคือเรื่อง security นะครับ Microsoft Azure นะครับเราเป็น cloud platform ที่นะครับมีการปกป้องคุ้มครองข้อมูลของลูกค้านะครับตามมาตรฐานชั้นนำนะครับเรามีสัญญาณจากภัยคุกคามต่างๆเข้ามาต่อวันเนี่ยมหาศาลนะครับสิ่งนั้นแหละคือความคลังความรู้ที่เราจะเอาตรงนั้นมาต่อยอดในการปรับปรุงป้องกันเพื่อทำให้คลาวด์ของคุณเนี่ยปลอดภัยนะครับและมั่นใจได้นะครับอันนั้นคืออย่างแรกนะครับอย่างที่2เราเชื่อครับว่าทุกๆองค์กรสมัยนี้นะครับทุกๆธุรกิจสมัยนี้เนี่ยต้องมีการควบคุมดูแลโดย compliance ไม่ว่าจะเป็น ISO standard ไม่ว่าจะเป็น standard อื่นๆสิ่งหนึ่งที่ Microsoft เราทำเพื่ออำนวยความสะดวกและช่วยให้ลูกค้าทุกคนนะครับสามารถใช้งานระบบเทคโนโลยีดิจิทัลได้นะครับหรือใช้งาน AI ได้เนี่ยอย่างมั่นใจคือเรามี compliance มากที่สุดในผู้ให้บริการ cloud ในปัจจุบันนี้นะครับคือ93 certification ทั้งในประเทศทั้งในregion นะครับหรือใน level ของ worldwide เองก็ตามนะครับ global standard เป็นอะไรที่ Microsoft เรามีอยู่แล้วนะครับสิ่งทั้งหมดเนี่ยจะทำให้ทางหน่วยงานผู้ทำงานสามารถตอบโจทย์ audit ตอบโจทย์ในเรื่องของการต้องถูก regulate นะครับโดย regulator ได้นะครับอย่างสะดวกใจมากขึ้นนะครับทั้งหลายทั้งปวงสิ่งที่ Microsoft เราทำมาเนี่ยเราต้องการจะสร้างความมั่นใจให้กับลูกค้าทุกท่านให้กับบริษัทประกันทุกคนนะครับในเรื่องของว่าการเอาข้อมูลมาทำให้มันเป็นช่องทางบนดิจิทัลได้เนี่ยมันไม่ใช่อะไรที่มีความเสี่ยงเลยมันเป็นอะไรที่ทุกคนสามารถทำได้ในเวลารวดเร็วนะครับทั้งหมดเนี่ยเพื่อทำให้เราสามารถ transform ธุรกิจของเราไปได้นะครับนอกเหนือจากนั้นเนี่ยสิ่งที่ Microsoft เราอยากจะนำเสนอคือว่าเรามีโปรแกรมที่เป็นลักษณะของ Intelligent Insurance Workshop นะครับสั้นๆสักครึ่งวันที่เราสามารถที่จะเข้าไปรันให้กับทุกท่านได้เนี่ยเป็นลักษณะ1 ต่อ 1นะครับเพื่อให้ทุกคนเห็นภาพว่าอันเนี้ยคือ practice best practice ที่แต่ละหน่วยงานในธุรกิจประกันเนี่ยทำอะไรไปบ้างนะครับอะไรบ้างสามารถเป็น quick win ให้กับทางลูกค้าแต่ละท่านได้แล้วอะไรบ้างที่เราสามารถเอาไปต่อยอดต่อได้นะครับยังไงถ้าสนใจนะครับติดต่อเข้ามาได้ไม่ว่าจะเป็นทางเซลล์ของ Microsoft เองหรือว่าอะไรก็ตามนะครับทางช่องทางอื่นก็ได้นะครับเดี๋ยวยังไง Microsoft เราสามารถเข้าไปนำเสนอโปรแกรมเวิร์กช็อปดีๆให้นะครับโดยไม่มีค่าใช้จ่ายนะครับเราอยากให้ทุกคนเห็นประโยชน์ของการทำ Digital Transformation แล้วทำให้ธุรกิจเราสามารถก้าวพ้นข้ามสู่วิกฤตต่างๆที่มันเกิดขึ้นได้นะครับต่อไงก็ตามทาง Microsoft ประเทศไทยนะครับขอขอบคุณนะครับทางคปภ.ที่ให้โอกาสทาง Microsoft เรามาแชร์เรื่องราวดีๆในวันนี้นะครับผมวสุพล ทานกการนะครับขออนุญาตลาไปก่อนสวัสดีครับขอบคุณครับ